Have you ever received something so simple, just paper and ink, yet it completely shifted the way you saw your life? Maybe it was a message you didn't expect, or maybe it was exactly what you needed to hear, right when you needed it most. Welcome to Postcard English Stories, where we share real stories that move the heart and touch the soul, all while helping you fall in love with the English language one story at a time. Today's episode is called The Letter That Changed My Life. And let me tell you, this wasn't just a letter, it was a lifeline. Have you ever found yourself at a point where everything felt stuck, like the days were blending together? You're breathing, moving, existing, but not really living. You wake up, go through the motions, try to smile, try to work, but deep inside, something's just missing. Or maybe broken. That's exactly where I was about a year ago. At that time, I was in my mid-20s, living alone in a small apartment in the city. From the outside, everything looked fine. I had a job, not the dream kind, but stable. I had friends, though I rarely saw them. I had goals, sure, written in some forgotten notebook, probably collecting dust under my bed. But inside, I felt completely disconnected. From people, from purpose, from myself. Every night I would sit by the window and just stare at nothing. The traffic lights, the people below, the same blinking billboard that kept telling me to dream big, while I couldn't even drag myself out of bed most mornings. I was burned out, emotionally exhausted, and honestly, quietly breaking. And that's when the letter came. It showed up on a Tuesday. Cold, gray. Skies. A cup of coffee gone cold on my desk. I remember opening my mailbox like I always do, not expecting anything more than junk ads and bills. But there it was. A small envelope, no return address. My name written in handwriting I hadn't seen in years. At first, I thought it was a mistake, maybe someone else's letter, maybe a weird marketing trick. But something about the paper, the ink, the way my name was written, it felt personal. I took it inside, sat down, and just stared at it for a while. It felt strange, intimate, like the envelope itself carried a kind of weight. I held it in my hands, fingers tracing the edges, heart starting to beat just a little faster. I didn't know why I hadn't even opened it yet. Then I did. And let me tell you something. It wasn't long. It wasn't poetic. It didn't have perfect grammar or beautiful stationery. But it was real and raw. And exactly what I didn't know I needed. And in just a few short lines, everything changed. Now, before I tell you exactly what was written in that letter and who it was from, I want to say this. We often think that change has to come from something huge, a big opportunity, a life-altering event, a total breakdown or breakthrough. But sometimes, change arrives quietly. Sometimes it slips into your life in the form of an envelope. Sometimes it's a voice from the past, reminding you of who you were and who you still can be. Sometimes it's love or forgiveness, or courage, written on paper. In this episode, I want to take you through that story, not just the words on the page, but what came before and what came after. Because that letter, simple, unexpected, and full of truth, was a turning point. And maybe it will speak to something inside you too. Back then, I was going through the motions of life, but inside, I was barely holding it together. I remember waking up most mornings already tired, not physically, but mentally. The kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. I'd stare at my phone scroll through endless messages, memes, and news, but none of it meant anything. I couldn't even answer my mom's texts without feeling overwhelmed. Work was a blur. I was in an office job that paid the bills, but that's about it. Meetings felt like background noise. Deadlines came and went. I smiled in front of people, nodded in all the right places, said I'm fine, more times than I could count. But the truth, I felt like I was slowly disappearing, like the real me was somewhere far away and I didn't know how to reach them. Friends, I had them at least on paper, but I started turning down invitations, telling people I was too busy, when really I just didn't have the energy to pretend I was okay. Isolation is sneaky. Like that, it doesn't always feel like loneliness at first, it just feels quiet. And that quiet slowly becomes normal. Even simple things like making dinner or going outside started to feel like climbing a mountain. I would order takeout night after night, let dishes pile up in the sink. I stopped listening to music. I stopped reading books, things I used to love. I didn't feel connected to them anymore. But the hardest part? I didn't know why I felt that way. There wasn't a tragic event. No heartbreak, no loss, no dramatic moment. Just this slow, steady fade, like color draining out of a photograph. I felt guilty for feeling empty, because on paper, everything was fine. I wasn't sick. I wasn't broke. I had people who cared about me, but the guilt only made it worse. I kept asking myself, why do I feel this way? What's wrong with me? I didn't talk to anyone about it. Not really. I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want anyone to worry. So I kept going. Day after day. Routine after routine. Smiling on the outside, hurting on the inside, hoping somehow something would change. And then that envelope showed up. At the time, I had no idea how much I needed it. I didn't know a few handwritten lines could break through months of numbness. I didn't expect anything meaningful to arrive in my mailbox. Not then. But somehow life or fate had a different plan. That letter would be the first spark in a long, slow return to myself. But I'll get to that in a moment. First, let me take you back to the exact day it came. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were always the most forgettable days. Too far from the weekend to feel hopeful, too deep into the week to still feel fresh. That morning I had spilled coffee on my shirt, missed my bus, and showed up to work 10 minutes late. Nothing catastrophic, just another layer in a pile of blah. I dragged myself through meetings, barely noticed what anyone said, and left the office with my headphones in, but no music playing. When I got home, I did what I always did. I checked the mailbox on the way up the stairs. I never expected much, maybe a bill, a coupon, some junk mail I'd toss without reading. But that day, something caught my eye. A small white envelope. No logos, no typed address. Just my name handwritten in a style that instantly felt familiar. Though I couldn't place it. It stopped me in my tracks. I stood there in the hallway, keys still in my hand, just staring at it. There was something strangely intimate about it. Something soft, almost sacred. In a world of texts and emails and notifications, a handwritten letter felt like a whisper from the past. I turned it over. No return address, just my name, just that. For a moment I thought it might be a mistake. Maybe meant for someone else, but no. That was definitely my name. Written in that careful, slightly uneven script that reminded me of something, someone, but who I took it upstairs, set it on my kitchen table, and just looked at it. I didn't open it right away. I don't know why exactly. Maybe I was scared. Maybe I was afraid of what it might say, or worse, what it might not say. Or maybe after feeling so numb for so long, the idea that anything might actually matter felt too overwhelming. I made tea, sat by the table, watched steam rise from the cup. Still the envelope sat there, quiet, unmoving, waiting. Eventually I reached for it. My hands were a little shaky, not from fear, but from that strange mix of curiosity and emotion. You can't quite name. I opened it slowly, carefully, like it might break if I moved too fast. And inside, one folded piece of paper, no date, no greeting. Just a few lines of writing and a name at the bottom that I hadn't seen or spoken in years. My breath caught. It was from someone I never expected to hear from again. And the words, they were simple. But they cracked something open inside me, something that had been locked away for a very, very long time. In that moment, I knew this wasn't just a letter. It was something more. I unfolded the paper with both hands, almost afraid of damaging it, like it was something ancient sacred. It had that soft crinkle, the kind that only comes from paper touched with care. And then I began to read. There were only a few sentences. Nothing dramatic, no long explanations, just honesty, raw, real, unpolished words that reached straight through the fog I had been living in. Hey, I don't know if this will even reach you, or if you'll care, but I needed to say this because for a long time I didn't. I'm sorry, I should have said that. A long time ago, you didn't deserve the silence. I hope you're doing okay. And if you're not, I hope you hang on because the world is better with you in it. That's all, M. That was it. No return address. No way to write back. Just the words. And my name written on the front, like someone had been thinking of me, like someone still cared. I read it again and again. It took me a while to process it. The apology, the acknowledgement, the kindness tucked into such a small space. It wasn't dramatic, it didn't solve anything really, but it saw me. And in that moment, feeling invisible for so long, that meant more than I could explain. Because here's the thing. This letter wasn't from a lover, not from an ex, not even from someone I'd call close at this point in my life. It was from an old friend. Someone I hadn't spoken to in nearly 5 years. We drifted apart after a falling out over something that felt huge back then, but now seems so small. I don't know what led them to write it. Maybe they were going through their own healing. Maybe they didn't even expect me to read it, but they wrote it anyway. And those few lines, they cracked open a door inside me. Suddenly, I wasn't thinking about all the things I'd failed at. I wasn't drowning in the guilt, the isolation, the heaviness. For the first time in months, I felt something real. Hope, connection. The simple reminder that I mattered to someone. Even just one person was enough to shake me out of the fog. I cried. Not the dramatic, cinematic kind of crying, but the quiet kind. The kind that comes with a release you didn't know you needed. I held that letter in my hands for a long time. Not because I was stuck in the past, but because in that moment, the future didn't feel so far away anymore. The letter didn't change my life because of what it said. It changed my life because it reminded me, words, honest human words have power. Even the smallest message can be the beginning of healing. and sometimes what saves you fits on a single piece of paper. After I read the letter, really read it, something shifted inside me, not all at once. It wasn't like a lightning bolt or a dramatic movie moment where everything turns around in a single day. No, it was slower than that. Softer, but real. I left the letter on my nightstand that evening. I couldn't bring myself to put it away. For weeks afterward, I'd reread it, sometimes late at night when I couldn't sleep, sometimes in the morning before facing the day. And every time those words echoed just a little deeper. If you're not okay, I hope you hang on because the world is better with you in it. That one line became a lifeline. I started doing small things differently. Nothing big. Just enough to feel like I was trying again. I texted a friend back, one I had ignored for months. I didn't say much, just a "Hey, how have you been?" But that tiny message cracked open a whole conversation. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I laughed. Really laughed. I started taking short walks in the morning, just 10 minutes at first. No music, just fresh air and the sound of my own footsteps. Something about it felt honest, like I was walking back toward myself slowly. I opened my windows again, let the light in, made real food, scrambled eggs, a bowl of rice soup from scratch. Nothing fancy, just things that reminded me I deserved care, even from myself. And more than anything, I stopped pretending everything was okay. I didn't suddenly become happy. I didn't fix my life overnight. But I gave myself permission to feel whatever I was feeling, without shame, without rushing, without needing to explain it to anyone. That letter didn't erase my pain, but it validated it. And more than that, it reminded me that someone out there, someone I thought was long gone, had taken the time to reach out to say sorry, to say something when silence had been easier. That act of courage theirs gave me the courage to start talking again. Not just to others, but to myself, to that quiet part of me I'd been ignoring, the part that still wanted joy, still wanted connection, still wanted to live. So, what changed? Everything. And yet, nothing you could see from the outside. What changed was me, the way I moved through the world, the way I allowed myself to feel again, the way I stopped believing that I had to go through life alone. And all of it started with a few lines written on paper, sealed in an envelope. You never really know what your words might mean to someone else, and sometimes healing doesn't come from big speeches or perfect timing. Sometimes it comes from a quiet message, one that simply says, "I see you, I haven't forgotten, and you still matter. So here I am, now months later, still holding on to that letter, not physically, but in the way it lives inside me." I never wrote back. I couldn't. There was no address, no number, no clear way to respond. But maybe that was the point. Maybe that letter wasn't meant to start a conversation, but to close a wound, and in some quiet, beautiful way, it did. That piece of paper reminded me that healing doesn't always look like big moments or big changes. Sometimes healing is silent. Sometimes it looks like making your bed, calling a friend, going outside, letting the light back in. And sometimes it begins with someone else's courage, someone saying, "I'm sorry," or "You matter," even when they don't know if you're listening. If you're hearing this right now and you're going through something, I want you to remember this. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be strong all the time. You don't even have to have it all figured out. You just have to hang on, because the world is better with you in it. Your voice matters. Your story matters. And maybe there's someone out there who's been meaning to write you a letter, or maybe someone who's waiting to hear from you. So if there's something you've been meaning to say to a friend, to a family member, to yourself, say it. Write the letter, send the message, or simply sit with it and let it soften your heart. Because sometimes the smallest words can open the biggest doors. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Postcard English Stories. If this touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, your story isn't over yet. Until next time. Be gentle with yourself and with others. Goodbye for now.